All right, hello. It has happened. I have beaten the newest Paper Mario game, and I have opinions on it, and we're going to talk about that. I apologize if there's any weirdness to any kind of sound right now. I got a new microphone, so I'm still getting used to it. It should be like higher fidelity, technically, but I think I just laughed, and it might have just made a loud noise. I'll see what I can do in the post thing, but whatever. Paper Mario, the Origami King. I just beat it last night. I stayed up a little bit later than I probably should have to beat it, but yeah, we're gonna talk about this thoroughly. I do want to talk about this. This is totally unscripted though, so prepared for me to ramble. But I am gonna split this up into a few little sections, just to make it a little bit more cohesive. First of all, just want to get this right off the bat. I really liked this game. If you don't want to watch this because of spoilers or something, there's not really going to be much spoilering until maybe I mention it. But yeah, if you were debating on it, I actually highly recommend this game for mostly anybody. It's just a really fun adventure game, and I'll get more into that as the video goes on, because I got a lot of opinions. Of course I have a lot of opinions, right? I mean, how could I not have a lot of opinions? So yeah, I did like it a lot, and I'm pretty damn satisfied with my experience with that game. But we're going to talk about the complaining first, because I think that is something that a lot of people are concerned about, and rightfully so. If you're new here, I'm not even going to go into the intricacies of this. The last two Paper Mario games were very, very lackluster. They just didn't really supply the things people wanted. I'm sure you could look up the rest. But anyway, everyone was very worried about this game because it looked like the last two games, I would argue. People aren't really mentioning that. Not that it makes a big deal, but just so many people are talking about this game so thoroughly, and don't bring up the fact this game is very much made on Color Splash's engine, which is fine. I'm pretty sure Super Paper Mario is made on Thousand Year Door's engine, actually. But regardless, actually, that might not be true. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. Origami King is obviously supposed to be a sequel to Color Splash in some ways. Even similar things about the way the story goes and some of the aesthetics and the UI choices are very similar to Color Splash. They must have started development on this game right after Color Splash and used as little new assets. Well, I shouldn't say that. That's not fair to this game. They recycled assets when they needed to, I'll say that. Even stuff like the very end of Color Splash, Luigi leaves, Luigi helps them escape on his flying cart thing from Mario Kart 8, and same thing, it almost starts with that. It's almost like a complete circle kind of thing. It's actually kind of cute. I don't like Color Splash at all. Going back to that game made me truly realize that game is so flawed. It's so hard to play for so many reasons, and there's a few reasons that persist somewhat in Origami King, but almost every single reason I didn't like Color Splash. Not reasons that are, it's not the old ones, or, oh, you don't have XP, because that's not, I don't know if people realize, that's not an actual criticism. Not having XP doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be better, because if you just smacked EXP in Color Splash, it still wouldn't be good. It just wouldn't. It doesn't matter how much XP you smack into this game. There's so many issues with those last two games, and there's some issues with Origami King too that would need to be retooling the entire system. So it wasn't really that there wasn't XP or that there wasn't partners. It were these things that felt like they could genuinely be added onto that would make it better. But anyway, I don't want to talk about Color Splash too much. Let's talk about my issues with Origami King. So the first thing, I just still don't understand. All right, so this is the first big point. It's the battles is obviously going to be the biggest criticism for this. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. I don't understand why they need it to still feel like an RPG, like at all. Like if they're going to rip down the RPG mechanics almost entirely, why don't they just go all the way? The thing that I don't like about Origami King is that there are, like, you have a choice of fighting enemies. That sounds weird, but I've been thinking about this a little bit. Like, so there are enemies walking around, and you can engage in fighting with them. And like I'm sure you've heard a million people say, you don't really get anything from fighting. You get coins, and you use those coins basically during your fight. And I would argue that you usually never use as many coins as you get during the fights. And equipment and items, like, if people are calling it the coin economy, if the coin economy is like, I wouldn't say it's bad, but it's not super balanced. I don't know if this team of people who make these new Paper Mario games necessarily know how to balance like these mechanics that they keep adding. The paint in Color Splash was insanely weird, and just you didn't even feel like it was an issue. It didn't even feel like a gameplay mechanic. It felt like it couldn't even be there and you wouldn't even notice. That bar on the top you could cover with like a fucking sticky note and you probably wouldn't even notice. There'd be no difference. Maybe, I haven't played that game in a while, but I have a feeling, from what I can remember, it didn't really make a big difference. The sticker thing in Sticker Star, the idea of having stickers wasn't like super unique or anything. It was just items. It was literally just items. Very boring and lame. And there were so many instances where like the amount of money you had compared to how many items you needed, or your inventory space compared to how many items you were being given, didn't make any sense. You could fight every enemy in Sticker Star and you still would run into situations where they give you like an important sticker, something that you really need, and you don't have room for it. And it's like, what, did they not plan this? What? Like, what are they expecting me to do with this? Or you get near the end of the game and you have so many coins and you're like, I can just fill my inventory with mushrooms. Literally, I can fill it with mushrooms with the money I have. Should I be able to? What else am I supposed to use my money on? And that persists in Origami King in a way. There's like a coin economy, like, by the way, what I mean by coin economy is in a game is the money you're getting like makes sense with how much stuff costs. So in Final Fantasy, when you finish an area, the amount of like money you have, is that like, do you have enough for the items that you need to buy? Do you have enough to be powerful enough to move on? There needs to be this like natural progression of that, and there is grinding in RPGs. Paper Mario usually doesn't have that, which is why it's smart. In like a game like Thousand Year Door, there are situations where you have a good amount of money. You might, like after especially chapter 3, you make a lot of money. But if you go to the bat shop, shit is expensive, and you might only be able to buy one thing. And that is an important decision, because you're like, oh, I have 300 coins to work with. All these badges are 200 coins. Which one do I buy? And you make that decision, and that's fun. That's part of the joy of Paper Mario, or at least an RPG in general. I would argue even like an adventure game, any game with, compensation for your actions. I don't know how to word that. Point is, it's not an Origami King, I feel. I feel like there were so many situations, especially near the end of the game, where they were giving you stuff, and it was just so abundant, and you had so much of it that I never felt like there was an opportunity where I had to, like, manage my coins correctly. There's a mechanic where you can add time to like the timer for the ring thing. I'm not going to explain really, like, maybe I'll explain it loosely in a little bit, but point is, you can add time to a timed battle system. That makes it easier. I never once felt like I was like debating using this. If I was about to run out of time, it was just an instinctual hold that button and give myself like, another 50 seconds or something, which is 500 coins. It never felt like a a debate, because at the end of the battle, especially the ones where I would be using that, like boss fights, they give you like 4,000 coins. That's insane. There's no way someone's using 4,000 coins. I would argue there's not really a legitimate way you could use 2,000 coins. Maybe there is, but very rarely I think somebody would add like, that, like it would add 2,000 coins worth of coins or time or whatever. That sounds a little ridiculous. So like, and even then it's like, well, those that other coin stuff will go to collectibles or, stuff you'd buy in the shop. True, but you also find coins everywhere. I would argue I had 10,000 coins before I hit like 2 or 3 battles. They throw them everywhere. Every time you use your confetti thing, you get coins. It's like they spit them at you like candy. And I think that's because they're worried about their battle system not being balanced, because I've heard this a lot from people over the last few days. The combat, while easy, like actual combat wise, like what you're doing technically is simple, it gets a little confusing, and the timer is definitely pretty strict near the end. You definitely need more than like a minute sometimes for these, and there's equipables that give you extra time and stuff, and like I said, you can use your coins. But it's not easy, and a lot of people apparently have been getting stumped. I was like watching some people live streaming it today and just listening to people talk about it, because I was like, oh, if I'm gonna make this video later in the day, I want to make sure I have like a fresh mind on it. Yeah, it's not easy, but it's not, I don't know how to word this. It's not like challenging you. It's more just like challenging your ability to like figure something out, which I guess in some ways is how Paper Mario has been in the past, which I'll get to that in a second. Point is, the coin stuff is kind of an issue if you want something more balanced. I just feel like you never had any kind of issue with it. And even the most novice player, the person who has never played a game like this in their life, I still cannot see them running out of coins. It just doesn't, I just would not even imagine it. I was sitting around 50,000 after like 3/4 of the game, the entire way through the end of the game. And I was buying equipables, and I was using the timer additions, and I was doing basically everything. I'm not like a genius puzzle solver. I was having a lot of trouble with some of these puzzles, but even if I was dying, the thing that persisted is I feel like I was never running out of coins. And I never had an issue, and I never had to debate it. But that's it. That's kind of an issue with the game. I wish it was a little bit stricter, just to make it a little harder, or a little bit more like they had made a difference, because the thing is, that's your reason for fighting. That's what I was, that's actually where this was all going. I forgot. That is your reason for fighting, technically. Think about it, that you want to make money, to grind or whatever. But you just never have that incentive. So obviously that criticism that everyone talks about, where there's no incentive to fighting, is still technically there. The solution to that in my brain is don't have the choice, which sounds shitty, but if you're gonna make a game like this, a linear adventure game that is just going story beat to story beat to story beat, why don't you just do event battles? Like, just have something, some sort of excuse to make it so you hit roadblocks of enemies every once in a while. Because that's something I do want to talk about when I, are talking about some good things about it. I know this is already pretty long. It's going to be a long video, so I suggest you relax and listen. It's one of those things where I'm like, why, like, the battle system is really fun in short bursts, so that would have benefited from it. It would have benefited from having these very planned fights, because when there are planned fights, like the boss fights, or even some of like the mini boss fights that show up throughout the game, some of those are extremely fun, and they are really thought out. They are thought out with the cool thing about this game is because there isn't like a level, and they don't have to balance you being a specific level at these points. These boss fights can always be kind of the same. So it just feels like a raw puzzle solving thing you have to conquer, and it's a lot of fun when it does that. But the enemy encounters are like the same thing, just randomized, and it just gets old fast. And I mean, I'm the first to say this. I avoided battles most of the game, not because I wanted to get it done, but because I didn't want to even waste the time doing it. I'm okay with this now. It was something that I had a bigger issue with in the other games. I'm kind of okay with skipping battles because I'm not gonna lie, it almost feels like it expects you to, or at least you're easily able to, and I think they know that. I'll get into that as well in a little bit. What were my other criticisms? That's a great question. The other thing is sometimes the game will do these things where they have these boss fights and they'll like insta-kill you. But the thing is, I can't even say it's a big critique because I think it's part of the design. Because it's a puzzle, they need to punish you for not getting it right. They need you to be able to learn from it, yada, yada, yada. In Color Splash and Sticker Star, it was literally like, there's a gimmick to this boss. If you do not have this specific item, because again, Color Splash and Sticker Star were all items. Those were your moves, items. Cards and stickers, stupid, it's just a naming scheme. They are fucking items that you would use in any other RPG, consumable things. If you do not have that specific consumable thing for this boss fight, you will lose. Totally tongue-tied there. It will either be invincible or it'll insta-kill you. That was the mechanics of all the bosses, especially in Color Splash. Sticker Star was pretty bad, but Sticker Star, the way they balanced it was they gave it a fuck ton of health, and it wasn't like, it was so jarring to get to a boss fight and be like, there's no way I can beat this. And then it's like, we'll use the weakness. And it's like, oh, okay. In Color Splash, it was like, you did no damage and they insta-killed you at a certain point in the boss fight. And it was never in the beginning. It was never in the fucking beginning. I don't get that. I don't know why they wouldn't just make it, because I get the puzzle is you figure it out. You go like, oh, the baseball bat. But they could have been like, you're missing something, Mario. Go back and get something. Maybe think innings or something, and then you have to go get the baseball bat. It's like they could have, before wasting your time trying this boss fight and getting a little frustrated, they could have like somehow balanced that a little bit better than the other games. And in this game, they do a similar thing, but honestly, it's not as bad, which is a great thing. It seems like they learned. Usually, if a boss has a gimmick, it won't insta-kill you. It will like almost kill you, or like take out a significant amount of HP that is way more than anything else it does. So you're like, you understand that it's like, this is intense. I'm not supposed to do this. Or there's only one boss that will insta-kill you, which is kind of annoying, but it's actually a pretty fun boss because it gives you kind of a choice. The boss fights are really good. I will praise that in a second. But yeah, that's pretty much it. The main issue is really the progression in terms of like actually wanting to do the gameplay. It just feels unbalanced. Like all these other games, the last two games, it just feels unbalanced. It just feels like they didn't think it through enough, or like they were distracted by other things. That's kind of what sometimes it feels like. It's like they're so distracted by this new battle mechanic that they have, and they want people to do it. They want people to be interested, that they like overcompensate like crazy for things like coins and equipables and making sure everyone can do anything. And it's like, there needs to be, you have to trust that your game is good enough where people will be interested, rather than like just making it either too easy or too hard. It just ends up feeling weird. It feels inconsequential. Those bosses that insta-kill you feel like, well, it didn't fucking matter what I had equipped. All that progress meant nothing because this boss is insta-killing me anyway. So if I just started the game and went to this boss, it would be no different. I would still need the item. You know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of thing that bugs me about that. Oh man, I totally forgot about this. Okay, there's one more thing. This is so badly put together, but that's fine. As many of you know, there are also partners in the game. Seemed like they were going to be a big selling point. This game did not have a lot of marketing because of how fast it came out. partners are technically in the game only by name, really. They are not really partners, and their inclusion is weird, very weird. They feel like, in some ways, they feel like a last-minute addition, and in some ways, they feel like they were really integral to the story, and they, like, add a lot. It's, like, so sad that it's not what I want it to be, because it's really close. It's, like, better in some aspects. So the partners are these temporary party members. They actually show up in your like menu as a party member. You don't like switch to them. They have no overworld abilities like the old Paper Mario games. They just are just chilling. Like the first guy, Bobby or Bob-omb, whatever. He's just kind of chilling. He just follows you around. And during a battle, he'll be there with you. Unlike Olivia. Olivia doesn't stick with you. She's like in your pocket or whatever. But this partner is behind you and walks with you and is in battles with you. And he kind of just like hits shit every once in a while. Not really anything super interesting. They really don't have abilities beyond that. There are parts where they're like used, like they need their abilities, and like one partner has an ability on like the D-pad, but it's like super situational and it's just for that chapter or that part of the game. And it feels weird. Like, I feel like this game would have benefited from not necessarily party members. I won't say party members because it's very segmented. So I don't think, like, I think the mechanics of like the folding arm thing is fine. That's fine. It doesn't need a ridiculous amount of that kind of stuff, that puzzle solving stuff. But it would have helped if like Bobby could have had an explosion move and you needed to use him during that part in certain areas. I get maybe if you wanted to go back, maybe you wouldn't have Bobby anymore. So, because the party members obviously leave and they're temporary. So it's like you wouldn't have him near the end of the game. So you're like, oh, well, what am I supposed to do now? How am I supposed to get these collectibles that I missed? That kind of makes sense. But it's a shame because I think this overworld and these puzzles would have really benefited from that, because there are situations like when you have the Toad in the second world and spoilers, I guess, he has a digging ability. He can dig into the ground. Yeah, like that was kind of fun. You had a way to dig when you wanted to, and it was an ability, and there weren't like really, I wouldn't say there were puzzles really, but like, I don't know, it was cool. They could have done more with it, but I think this game would have benefited from more stuff like that. And also, I think it would have benefited from them having abilities in battle too. I think it would have really benefited. Not even something super crazy. Not even like they have their own health bar, or, you know, they have like abilities they learn like the other Paper Mario games. It would have just helped if you had like, if they could like do something like they each could throw down a different type of like panel in a boss fight, or I don't know, like they could move stuff around quicker or something. I don't know. They could have easily added some sort of mechanic to make them feel more prominent in the battles in the overworld, because on the contrary, they feel really prominent to the writing and the story. These are the most fleshed out I have ever seen a party member in a Paper Mario game. There are party members that are fleshed out, but like Bobby and even Olivia and stuff, these are some of the best written characters in this series. And they're really charming, and you love them, and you love being with them, and you love the banter, and it's just really fun. And it's a shame that they don't have a lot of impact beyond that. There are also like 3 of them. They literally, they were like all shown off in the trailers and stuff. But yeah, it was weird. It feels very strange. Again, it's just like weird design choices that I feel like maybe they only made because people were complaining about it. It's like, oh, partners in Paper Mario. Everyone complains about partners. And they know that. They definitely know the complaints, because there's some tongue-in-cheek lines in this game, especially near the end. There's one that is like so tongue-in-cheek about the criticisms that the newer Paper Mario games get, that I was like, oh my god. It was funny, but it felt like they're kind of aware. It feels like it's like a shut the fuck up, guys. We're adding partners. Look, that's not really what it is I think that people want. It's like kind of what people want, but it needs to mesh. It needs to work together. It needs to feel organic. When there's a situation where like you have this partner that's super important to the plot, like Bobby, and then you go into a temple and he doesn't go with you, I'm like, why? What? And it's like, oh, well, there are pre-rendered cutscenes in this temple, so maybe they just didn't like animate him in the cutscenes. They didn't want to add him. I don't know. It felt very forced. He was like, I don't like temples. And it's like, what the fuck? What? Like, what? It feels weird and dumb, and I don't really like that. I think that is that's the thing. I don't like that, but at the same time, I love those characters, and the addition of those characters is not a negative. Those great additions. I don't know why they just can't go all the way. Those would have been amazing additions. Those would have been exactly what I would want from not only the new Paper Mario, but any Paper Mario, would be the level of care and attention they put into these party members, but on a gameplay level too. That's it, basically. But yeah, we're gonna do another video after this where I talk about things I like about the game. This is becoming basically a rant. Spoilers, I like a lot about this game, so I'll see you next time.